When your cat chooses to stay near you, they're not just being affectionate. They are doing something far more biologically radical than that. They're voluntarily surrendering one of the most powerful survival instincts in their entire biology. And the fact that most owners have never thought of it that way means most owners have been underestimating the depth of what their cat has been trying to show them for years. This video is going to change that. Because the 10 behaviors you're about to learn aren't just heartwarming moments. They are precise, measurable signals of feline trust. And understanding what's actually happening beneath the surface will make you see your cat's entire relationship with you completely differently. Here's what most people assume: that when a cat acts affectionate, it's a mood, a random decision. Maybe they're hungry, maybe they're bored, maybe they just happen to feel like sitting near you today. But that's not what's happening. Not even close. Cats are not random. They are strategic in a way that goes all the way back to the wild. Every behavior they show you, every gesture they make, carries information. And the reason most owners miss it is not because the signals are subtle. It's because nobody ever told them what to look for. Think about how many years your cat may have been trying to tell you something. Think about how many of these moments you've already had without knowing what they meant. That weight, the idea that you've been living inside this communication the whole time and not fully seeing it, that's real. But the good news is, you're about to see all of it. Stay with me, because there is one behavior in particular, something your cat has almost certainly done to you, probably more times than you can count, that we're going to get to near the end of this video. And when you understand what it actually costs your cat to do it, what it requires of them biologically and instinctively, you will never experience that moment the same way again. Most owners go their cat's entire life never knowing what it meant. You're not going to be one of them. But before we get into the behaviors themselves, I want to tell you about someone, a woman who adopted a rescue cat named Rue, a quiet, gray, 5-year-old female who had been through 3 different homes before arriving at hers. Rue didn't hiss. She didn't hide behind the refrigerator or scratch anyone. She just kept her distance. She would settle somewhere across the room, watch with steady eyes, and never approach. No slow blinks, no trills, no paw touches. And this woman, after 8 months of patience, of gentle voices, of respecting boundaries, of lying on the floor just to be at Rue's level, was starting to wonder, quietly and painfully, whether they were simply never going to connect the way she had hoped. What she didn't know was that Rue had been speaking to her the entire time. She just didn't have the language to hear it yet. We'll come back to Rue. Her story ends in a way that changes how you understand every single behavior on this list. 1. The private language your cat built just for you. In a moment, I'm going to show you exactly what this means for your relationship with your cat. But first, here is the part that most owners have never once considered. Your cat meows at you. You probably already know that. But here is what most people don't realize. Your cat does not meow at other cats. Meowing, as a form of sustained vocal communication, is a behavior that domestic cats developed specifically and almost exclusively to interact with humans. Researchers who have studied feral cat colonies extensively have found that adult cats living in the wild are largely silent with one another. They communicate through body language, scent marking, and physical touch. Vocalization between adult cats is rare, and usually confined to mating calls or territorial confrontation. It is not how they maintain relationships. But with you, they talk. And here's what makes this even more fascinating. The sounds your cat makes with you are not generic. A 2017 study published in the journal Animal Cognition found that cats develop individualized vocal patterns that are specific to their human, sounds that other people don't reliably trigger, tones calibrated over months and years of living alongside you. Your cat has built a private vocabulary, just for you, and most owners have been hearing it as background noise for years. Think about that for a second. Every soft trill as they walk past your legs, every quiet chirp when you sit down on the couch, every short, rising meow that greets you when you come back into the room. These aren't random. They are entries in a language that your cat has spent years constructing, specifically around your presence. The meow that means, I see you and I'm at ease. The trill that means, I'm choosing to acknowledge you right now. The high, questioning sound they make when you do something unexpected. These sounds exist inside your relationship, and nowhere else on earth. No other person gets exactly these sounds in exactly these combinations. That is not a small thing. That is intimacy. Most owners go their cat's entire life thinking their cat is just vocal. They never stop to realize they're being spoken to in a language that was constructed specifically for them, refined over years, tuned to the specific rhythms of their life together. That's not just a missed detail. That's a missed conversation. One your cat has been having with you every single day. To your cat, every one of these sounds is a deliberate choice. They are not compelled to vocalize. In the wild, silence is survival. Sound draws predators. Sound reveals position. The decision to make sound around another creature is, instinctively, not taken lightly. When your cat speaks to you, they are making a judgment. You are worth the exposure. You are safe enough to be noisy around. That judgment is trust, expressed in the most literally vocal way they know. 2. The shadow you didn't know you had. Here's where it gets really interesting, because this next behavior looks so ordinary that almost no one stops to examine what it actually means. When your cat follows you from room to room, rests in the same space you're in, or quietly repositions throughout the day to stay near you without asking for anything in return, they are not bored. They are not being clingy in the way we sometimes dismiss that word. They are expressing something far more precise. Proximity, in the feline world, is a declaration. Cats are fundamentally solitary hunters. They do not naturally choose to spend sustained time near other living creatures, unless that creature has been placed, consciously or not, inside their circle of safety. Choosing to be near you is not nothing. It is, in cat terms, almost everything. A 2019 study from the University of Lincoln found that cats form secure attachment bonds with their primary caregivers in ways that parallel infant caregiver attachment patterns in human development. Cats in the study showed significantly more exploratory behavior and emotional regulation when their owner was present, and measurable signs of distress when the owner left. Not because they were hungry or overstimulated, but because the anchor was gone. Being near you helps them feel regulated. It is not a coincidence that they follow you. It is a coping strategy built on trust. So when your cat positions themselves at the doorway of whatever room you've moved to, or settles near your feet while you work, or wanders into the kitchen just as you start cooking, they are using your presence to organize their nervous system. And most owners, in that moment, are thinking about dinner, or their phone, or whatever project is on the desk. They are not thinking, my cat just chose me as their emotional anchor. But that is what is happening. Here's the thing about Rue. She did this too, and her owner missed it completely for months. Every evening, about an hour after dinner, Rue would quietly relocate from wherever she'd been resting during the day and settle somewhere in the same room as her owner. Not close, not on the couch, sometimes just inside the doorway. The woman assumed it was coincidence or warmth, or Rue just picking a comfortable spot. But for a cat who had lived in 3 different homes and spent her first weeks in this one hiding behind the washing machine, choosing to spend the evening hours in the same room as a human was not coincidence. It was the beginning of something. Rue had just never been given the language for it to be recognized. 3. What your cat's belly is actually telling you, and why most owners misread the whole thing. Stay with me here, because this next one is the behavior that most people get completely backwards, and the mistake actually damages the moment in a way that matters. The belly of a cat is where their vital organs sit, beneath almost no protective bone structure. Their ribs extend only part way. The soft abdomen is fully exposed, and in the wild, it is the most dangerous part of their body to leave unguarded. Cats know this instinctively. Every defensive posture they adopt in moments of threat is shaped around protecting that region. When they crouch, when they curl, when they tuck their paws beneath their body, the belly is the thing they are hiding. So when your cat rolls onto their back in front of you and exposes it, think about what is actually being offered. They are uncovering the most biologically vulnerable part of themselves and leaving it open in your presence without tensing. They are making a statement that goes beyond affection. I believe you will not hurt me here. In feline terms, that statement is enormous. It is the physical embodiment of lowered threat assessment. It is your cat's body saying, I have decided you are not a danger. And here is where the misread happens, and why it costs something. Many owners, seeing that belly, reach down and rub it, and they get a quick bite or a flash of claws in return. And then they joke about it, or they feel confused, or they start to think the belly exposure was a trick. It wasn't a trick. The trust was completely real. What happened was that actual physical contact arrived too quickly, too close to the instinctive reflexes that live in that part of the body, and the nervous system responded before the cat's conscious trust could override it. The exposure was an invitation to witness, not necessarily an invitation to touch. And most owners never realize the difference. Most owners have spent years interpreting the withdrawal as a personality quirk, rather than understanding that the offering itself, the exposure, was the gift. Whether or not it can be touched is a separate conversation entirely. A 2022 study from the University of Queensland found that cats who displayed belly-up postures in familiar environments showed measurably lower cortisol levels compared to baseline readings, meaning this is a genuine physiological marker of relaxation, not a performance. Your cat's body does not lie about this. When their belly is facing the ceiling, they are genuinely at ease. And when that happens in your presence, you are part of the reason why. And hey, if this is already changing the way you're seeing moments you've already had with your cat, if you're mentally revisiting things with new understanding, hit subscribe. It's the best way for other cat owners to find these videos, and every one of them deserves to understand what their cat has been trying to tell them. 4. The most intimate thing a cat will ever do for you. Here's what most people don't realize, and this is the one that, when it lands, tends to make people go very quiet. Cats groom themselves to regulate stress. It is a self-soothing behavior so woven into their nervous system that anxious cats will sometimes over-groom to the point of physical harm. It is that deeply rooted. Grooming is private. It is personal. It requires a lowered state of alertness and a sense of safety sufficient to allow the body to focus inward. And when your cat grooms you, licks your hand, your hair, the back of your arm, they are not simply showing affection. They are including you in the most intimate self-regulation ritual they perform. This behavior is called allo-grooming. In wild and feral cat colonies, cats groom the members of their social group, their family unit. A 2015 study from the University of Southampton examining feral colony behavior found that allo-grooming was directed almost exclusively toward cats with whom an individual had an established social bond. It was not used casually. It was not extended to strangers or to cats at the edge of the group's social circle. It was reserved for those who had already been accepted as kin. When your cat licks you, they are not confused about what species you are. They are placing you inside the category of beings they consider their own. Here's the thing about cats and grooming that most owners have never been told. Cats do not groom those they feel uncertain about. They do not groom the visitor who comes twice a year. They do not groom the person who repaired the dishwasher. They groom the beings whose scent is so deeply embedded in their sense of home that those beings have become part of their social identity. If your cat has ever groomed you, even once, even briefly, you were already more central to their world than you probably realized at the time. To your cat, grooming you is not a favor. It is a placement. It is the most precise social declaration they have available. It is them saying, without ambiguity, in the oldest language their species knows, "You are mine. You are us. You belong." And most owners have been thinking of it as sweet, when it is actually, in the fullness of what it means, much more serious than sweet. 5. The science of how your cat sleeps, and what it tells you about who they think you are. Here's what nobody tells you about a sleeping cat. And once you know this, you will never be able to watch your cat nap near you the same way again. Cats sleep between 12 and 16 hours a day, but not all of that sleep is the same. In light sleep, they remain partially alert, ears continuing to rotate toward sound, muscles held in a semi-ready state, capable of going from still to moving in under a second. This is the sleep of an animal managing vigilance. It is functional, but it is not rest in the deepest biological sense. Deep REM sleep, the kind where they twitch, where their paws paddle in tiny movements, where their eyes shift beneath closed lids as they dream. That phase only occurs when a cat's nervous system has fully disengaged from threat monitoring. It only happens when everything the cat's body has assessed about the environment has come back safe. Watch your cat the next time they nap near you. Are they fully sprawled, legs extended, body loose and open? Are they twitching? Are they making small sounds? Are they in a position that leaves their belly partially exposed? These are signatures of REM sleep. And REM sleep in an open, vulnerable position, in your presence, is your cat's nervous system delivering a verdict about you that their waking behavior sometimes cannot match in clarity. Their brain has assessed the environment with you in it and concluded, nothing here requires my vigilance. That conclusion includes you specifically. A study published in Applied Animal Behavior Science found that cats in households with a consistent, emotionally predictable primary caregiver showed significantly higher rates of relaxed sleep postures than cats in environments where human behavior was erratic or unpredictable. It is not just that your cat feels safe in the house. They feel safe in a house that contains you. That is a distinction that matters deeply. You're not just the person who feeds them. You are part of what makes the space feel like somewhere worth resting completely. Rue started sleeping in doorways around month 4 of being in her new home. Not inside rooms, not close to her owner, not on any of the furniture. Just in the frame of a doorway, where she could see both spaces at once. Her owner thought it was a strange habit. What it actually was proximity testing. Rue was running a slow, careful experiment, moving incrementally closer to the place where her owner spent most evenings, measuring whether each new position felt safe, waiting to see if anything changed. Doorway sleeping in a previously hiding cat is not strange. It is the first visible step of trust. And her owner, not knowing this, watched it happen for weeks and saw nothing. 6. The slow blink and why it is the most deliberate communication your cat will ever offer you. Remember earlier when I said there's one behavior, something your cat has almost certainly done to you, that once you understand what it costs them to do it, you'll never experience it the same way again. This is it. Here's what actually happens in the moment of a slow blink. In cat communication, a direct, sustained stare can be a confrontation. An unblinking gaze between cats in uncertain social territory is often a precursor to aggression. It is a dominance display, a challenge, an intensification of threat. But a slow blink, the deliberate, unhurried closing of the eyes and their gradual reopening, is the opposite of all of that. It is an active withdrawal from confrontation. It signals non-aggression. It signals comfort. It signals, I am lowering my alertness deliberately in your direction to tell you that you are not a threat to me and I am not a threat to you. Between cats, this gesture is part of how they negotiate social calm. But between a cat and a human, it carries one layer more. Because closing their eyes, even briefly, even in a moment of peace, requires your cat to accept a moment of reduced visual awareness in your presence. They cannot see what you might do in the second their eyes are shut. That second is small, but the choice to accept it is not. A 2020 study from the University of Sussex, led by researcher Dr. Karen McComb, confirmed with controlled methodology for the first time that cats are measurably more likely to slow blink toward their owners than toward unfamiliar humans, and that humans who slow blinked back at cats were subsequently rated as more approachable in follow-up interactions. The gesture moves in both directions. When you return it, your cat experiences it as receipt, as confirmation that you understand what they were saying. It creates a loop, a moment of mutual recognition that goes beyond species. Here's the part most people miss entirely. The slow blink is not only a trust signal, it is also a calming signal, an active, intentional gesture of de-escalation. When your cat slow blinks at you from across the room, they are not just expressing how they feel. They are going out of their way to reduce any ambient tension in the space between you. They are extending something toward you, offering peace, not just reporting it. To your cat, this is the most sophisticated piece of communication they have available in their social vocabulary. It requires stillness. It requires choosing, consciously, to briefly close their eyes in your direction. And in a creature whose entire survival once depended on never missing a single movement in their environment, that choice is not nothing. It is, in the quietest possible way, everything. This is what happened with Rue. 3 weeks after the morning with the paw, we'll get there in just a moment, she slow blinked at her owner for the first time, from the arm of the sofa. Her owner, who had spent 8 months learning, yet learned this one too by then. She slow blinked back. Rue held her gaze for a long, still second, and then she closed her eyes again and went to sleep right there on the couch, fully stretched, belly partially exposed, one paw draped loosely off the cushion edge. It had taken 8 months and 3 weeks, but it happened. Because trust in a cat does not arrive on a schedule. It arrives when they've decided the evidence is sufficient, when they've decided that the person across the room is the kind of person worth offering this to. But there is one more thing that happened before that slow blink. One quiet Tuesday morning that made everything leading up to it make sense. And this is the behavior I said at the start of this video that would change how you understand the rest. On that morning, Rue jumped onto the couch while her owner was reading. She didn't settle close, one paw, and rested it against her owner's one paw, and rested it against her owner's leg. She didn't look at her. She didn't seek eye contact or attention, but the paw stayed. For 23 minutes, Rue's paw rested against her owner's leg, while they both simply existed in the same quiet morning. Here is what that paw touch actually was. A cat's paw is one of their primary tools of defense, escape, and sensory contact with the world. When a cat is positioned with one paw committed to resting on a surface, on you, their ability to launch, flee, or defend is measurably reduced. Not eliminated, but compromised in a real, physical, biological sense. They are choosing, in that moment, a lower level of defensive readiness in order to maintain contact with you. A 2020 study from Kyoto University found that cats in close physical proximity to trusted humans showed reduced heart rates and lower cortisol markers, physiological indicators of calm that were specifically elevated when the human was removed from the space, and specifically reduced when contact was re-established. That passive paw touch is not decorative. It is your cat's nervous system actively using your body to regulate itself. They are not just resting their paw on you, they are using contact with you as a stabilizing force for their own biology. And most owners barely notice it. Most owners feel the small, warm weight and think, "Oh, that's sweet." They don't think, "My cat just made themselves physically more vulnerable in order to stay connected to me." They don't think, "My cat's heart rate just came down because we're touching." Most cats perform this gesture hundreds of times over a lifetime, and their humans let it pass as a pleasant coincidence. That is the thing that is actually heartbreaking about it. Not that the cats do it, but that so few people ever know what it meant. Her owner cried, not because she had been waiting for something grand, because she understood, suddenly and completely, that this was the grand gesture. That Rue, who had lived in 3 homes, who had learned somewhere in those first 5 years that humans were unpredictable, that comfort was temporary, that it was safer to stay where you couldn't be reached, had just placed her paw on another living creature and decided to stay. That the 8 months of watching from doorways, of sleeping in hallways, of quiet distance had been the slow architecture of a decision, and the decision had just been made. Not loudly, not with drama or display, just with a paw resting against a leg on a Tuesday morning. That is what trust looks like in a cat. It looks like a paw. It looks like a slow blink from across a room. It looks like a soft trill when you walk through the door, a belly turned toward the ceiling, a warm shape asleep in the doorway of whatever room you're in. It does not announce itself. It does not demand to be seen. It simply appears, quietly and precisely, in the small spaces between everything else, and waits to be understood. So the next time your cat follows you down the hallway and settles just inside the doorway, or rests their paw against your arm in the early morning light, or holds your eyes from across the room and blinks, let yourself really be there for it. Not the version of you that is thinking about something else, the version of you that knows what you now know. Because in that moment, your cat is not just being affectionate, they're telling you, in the most ancient and honest language they possess, that you are the place where their guard comes down. And for a creature whose entire survival once depended on never fully trusting another living thing, there is no greater thing they will ever give you.